It ain't that.
That's what I explained to these ladies. I said, this is not what I'm gifted to do. So we need to have people who say,
Oh my gosh, welcome everyone to Love Akron Live. Let me shut off the music. Let me shut the music off. Oh my goodness. Hi guys, Benjamin Beaver here, and I'm sitting here, of course, with half of the coach.
There you go.
Half the coach right there. And welcome to Love Akron Live. Now, what is Love Akron Live? This happens on the first and second week of the month, and we are actually taking these first 2 weeks of every month. Is that one mine or yours?
That ain't mine.
That's mine then. All right, good. We take the first 2 weeks, and we want to focus on our initiatives. So we went out on a bunch of initiatives at the Love Akron breakfast. And we want to talk to our partners, and we got a great partner to talk to today. Can't wait to bring these ladies on. They're going to make Kemp look good. Ooh, did I just say that? Oh, I'm sorry. Before jumping in, though, we want to give a special thanks, as you saw in the slides, to our premier sponsors this year, Peg's Foundation. Thank you that they make this possible, that we're able to do that, as well as Cap Trust. And we just love all that. Really, we've been set up to do this year, man. Like maybe even just to start with that, and then we'll bring on our guests. I know we've been talking personally, dude. What have the meetings been like since the breakfast?
Oh man, it's just been, I don't know if there's a word that we can sum it up with, but what I'm really appreciative of since the breakfast is the feedback that we've gotten as an organization. I'm really thankful to everybody out there, our audience, our partners, supporters, donors, everybody. Just thank you so much for, and I don't use this word haphazardly, but I thank you for the trust that you have in our organization. That means a lot, I think, because anytime you're going to launch out to really do something from a collective perspective, you want to make sure that there's trust there and there's buy-in there and there's understanding. And so a lot of the feedback that we receive probably since the break from different meetings that we've had is, man, how can I get involved? What else are you guys going to be doing? Do you really think you can do these initiatives? And I said, well, absolutely. And it's not because we can do the initiatives, because they're not Love Akron initiatives, but what they are is they're collective impact initiatives. And for me, just from a standpoint of my faith and my belief, I'm more about the team, the body, the church, if you will, having many members. But I love the collective approach to things because I think it's going to take all of us in order for Greater Akron to thrive. So it's not just going to be Love Akron. It's not just going to be, if you will, the faith community, but I think it's going to be a cross sector of many different organizations and community partners that's going to help Akron to thrive really well. And so a lot of these meetings today, I just had a meeting. It was a convening meeting to where somebody was trying to come to a certain side of town, but they said, hey, this is what we want to do. And I said, well, hey, I know 5 different people that are on that side of town really working in that same vein. Hey, why don't we all sit down and get a bite to eat together? And so we did. And needless to say, they're still there meeting now. I had to come and be with you all, but
you got the check though, right?
Yeah, I got the check.
Okay, well,
right?
that's
the most important.
Like you're good, man. You're good.
Yeah, Megan knows about getting the check. Megan's got a lot of checks in her life, but that's the beauty of it, right? It's we just help to set the table of what people desire to do, and we just help to convene and to connect people. Like that is, man. I drove back today, just really true story. As soon as I got in my truck, I said, God, thank you. Because sometimes when you're in the right place at the right time, doing the exact thing that you're supposed to be doing. And man, our guest is on the day, Megan Kleidon, helped me to understand that about me, which was my being. And I always say this whenever she's around, because she spoke into my being a long time ago. And just to see how things are now working out for me personally, to have this platform, Love Akron, is just really awesome. So Megan, thank you as always. I am forever indebted because you said, why are you in that office? And I said, well, this is where I work. And it was like, no, you shouldn't be in that office. And so
I want to hear. Hold on.
You breathed life into me.
I love hearing that. I want to hear the other side because I got to hear this side of the story a bunch. Before jumping in, and our main focus here, we're on here with Gia and Megan from Red Oak, and this is our mental health and wellness initiative.
Yeah.
And man,
with a strong focus on mental health first aid.
Yes, because seeing this, we'll get into all that. Megan, can you just introduce yourself, who you are, then Gia, and then I want to hear a little bit more from Megan about the other side of pushing coach into the deep end, because I love hearing about that.
Yeah, sure. So I am Megan Kleidon. I am the president and CEO at Red Oak Behavioral Health, and proud to call myself a friend of Kemp Boyd. So I feel like we have, when I think about our story, I came in as the CEO to this organization, really in the footsteps, following in the footsteps of a founder who had been here for 45 years, running our organization. And so coming in and getting an opportunity to meet my leadership team. At that time, Kemp was part of that leadership team. So he was serving as the director of our outpatient services and running the Vassal Center, which is our outpatient center and 611 West Market Street. And but Kemp's a coach, right? So you call him coach. So Kemp was coach then too. And had worked prior to that in the organization providing CPST services in Kenmore Garfield High School. And so when I, as the newbie, came into town and rolled into the organization, I said, gosh, I want to see our schools. I want to see our partners and get to meet our people in their space. And how can I do that? And Kemp's name immediately came up as somebody who could introduce me to school services and introduce me to school partners, in particular in the Kenmore Garfield cluster. So he and I went on a little road trip. It was probably our first time spending like a really solid extended period of time together after I came into the organization. And he took me all around. We walked into Kenmore Garfield High School just as it was going into lockdown. And they had brought in the dogs and the police were there. And so it was an exciting array and an entry.
When was this? When you say lockdown, when was this?
Yeah. So this was 2018, early 2018. So, right. So lockdown then, right, just meant that everybody had to stay in space and the police and the dogs were in the hallways sniffing lockers. Means a different thing today, right? When we talk about lockdown.
As soon as you said it, Megan, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. That was before all that. Okay,
yeah. Sorry. Different lockdown.
Okay.
So I got a chance to see him in that space with his kids and the students that he works with the teachers and the staff. And there was just light in him that was so apparent. And as he and I met for the times following that little adventure, that light was not there. And so that's really the context for that statement was that he was missing his light. He was sitting in a job where he had skills, right? So he's got a degree that has given him the skills to do organizational management. But his light was out there. His light was in the community. His light was with people. It wasn't with process or systems. It wasn't behind a closed door. And so he was in this management day job gig that really didn't seem to feed his soul. And so it was really just an observation at the time, like, how come you're doing this? Like
how life-changing it is, because Coach has done the same thing with me. And so I just wanted to go back and say thank you, Megan, for that, because I've gotten to receive that same it seems simple because you can just see it, but when you're in it,
yeah.
I want to introduce Gia real quick. What is your role, Gia, with Red Oak, and is the light still burning for you? And maybe a question to start with, but go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I am the manager of training development at Red Oak Behavioral Health. I'm super excited about this initiative here. It allows me to get out in the community and get people involved and get people involved in our mission and what I'm passionate about. So I'm really excited about this. It's something that I'm excited to work on. So thank you, Megan, for this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And our connection for Gia and I, we serve on the change direction through the Atom Board together. And so we had this, and me and Megan, we had actually kind of piloted together, say, hey, what can we always do together? Even once I left Red Oak, it was still like, okay, but we're still a team, right? I affectionately call Megan MKU, and she calls me KBU, because
Mhm.
when you sit down, this is like going back to school. It's like going to university, right? And so we said, man, what would it look like for us to really make impact from a standpoint of mental health, right? Not just in the community as a whole, but across different sectors of the community. And so Megan, our team, and her team, we sat down, I want to say, Megan, maybe about a month ago, and we start whiteboarding some things and some outcomes that we want to see regarding our mental health and wellness initiative, with a really strong focus on mental health first aid. Megan, could you just tell us or talk a little bit about us? What does that look like, and what is mental health first aid?
Yeah, of course. Sure. So, mental health first aid, probably the easiest way to understand what it is or how it works is to really step into a space of thinking about traditional physical health care first aid, right? So many of us have been through a CPR or a first aid course, right? And our CPR and first aid courses are there to teach us not the in-depth ways to respond, right? So Kemp and I talk about this, not teaching us how to do surgery when we see somebody with a broken leg, but it is teaching us how to approach somebody who has a broken leg and get them linked to the right person who is equipped to be able to help them fix their injury. And so really the easiest way to think about mental health first aid is to think that it's that same concept, but focused on mental health and wellness. And so really, it's giving you the tools to assist somebody who is experiencing a mental health or a substance abuse related crisis, not to be a therapist. So there's no license required to be certified in mental health first aid, but instead to be able to know what are the warning signs, what can I do, what's appropriate for me to do as a layperson when I encounter somebody who has a mental health crisis, and then who do I link them to? Where do I turn for help? What are the resources in my community to connect to, right? And so when we started talking, right after I came on board at Red Oak, we started talking about mental health first aid as an initiative. I had done mental health first aid in a prior role that I had filled, and was very passionate about the structure of the program. But I love the concept, right? That it's about being able to link with the broader community, provide education, outreach, and awareness, reduce stigma associated with mental health and mental illness so that people can start talking about it in meaningful ways. And when we decided to kind of jump into that path, training Kemp as a staff member just made perfect sense. It fed to his strengths. He is a natural communicator and a connector, right? So being able to connect the dots for people in terms of information, making it accessible in ways that people feel like they can relate to and understand, but also being able to make those community connections, which is key to mental health first aid. If I find somebody who's in trouble and you're telling me I'm not the skilled person to fix it, but I don't know who is or how to connect those dots and get that person into care, then I've not done my part of mental health first aid. That it would be the same thing as if I saw somebody with a broken leg, said, gosh, I can't help you, and left them there, right? You got to be able to make that connection. And so I feel like his passion for this work, coupled with his ability to communicate and to connect, made that kind of a perfect marriage. And that's really what we've looked at for every person we've trained in this program. Has been making sure that our instructors come with that same passion. They all have a story for why mental health matters to them. They all have a connection to the need for the service and an ability to connect people to key resources in their community. And our goal, as Kemp and I started mapping out what this could look like from partnership perspective, was to say, gosh, we need to make this as prevalent, right, as regular first aid is, as CPR training is in our communities. And we need to get this message and this information out so that we can create these little ambassadors and champions for mental health in our community, which is going to increase the likelihood that if anyone is out there in the community and in trouble, experiencing challenges related to mental health, that it's going to increase the likelihood that they're going to encounter someone who knows how to help them or link them to the help that they need. And so that's really what we've been working on together. And I feel like you're right, Kemp, it started when you were here. It continued almost immediately after, right, as we started to talk about what do we do together so that we continue to feed into one another and to support each other's work. But it also it's been a part of us looking at where is their service and ability for us to give back to our community. For us at Red Oak, this has been very much, we feel called to serve, not just at a client level, but at a community impact level, and finding ways to do that, to take our message out in ways that don't necessarily feed our bottom line. They don't necessarily impact the treatment that we provide or services that we do in that way, but that are really about building community capacity. It's an important part of our mission. And I feel like it's obviously a key part of yours as well at Love Akron. And so it was just kind of a perfect marriage from our two organizations coming together to do this work.
And I just love getting here. Really, it's birthed out of relationship that started to back to the things we say this. Bishop Joey Johnson says this all the time, but it's moving at the speed of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful about it is there was trust between Megan and between Coach. Gia, if you could give me kind of the temperature of Akron, Greater Akron. How are we doing on mental health awareness right now?
Right now, I think there is still a lot of stigma associated with mental health. People don't see the importance of mental health. It's part of your overall health altogether. So I think the community needs this training. I think the more people we equip with mental health first aid, the more people we can help and assist, and the more treatment we can provide going forward.
Okay. So here's what's funny, Ben, about Gia. You're going to see her. She's smiling and she's nice and all these things are happening. I don't know if she said this to you, Megan, but, we were on a call together, and this is kind of where Gia kind of asserted herself within some of these talks, because Adam Board is looking to do something similar. And so they're doing this with, I think it's called Mental Health America. Am I right, Gia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Adam Board has partnered with Mental Health America to provide mental health first aid training to over 4,000 people. And when we're on this call, I'm like, Kim, this is exactly what we're trying to do. This just seems like this partnership is something that we definitely need to do. So I reached out to Janet Gore at Mental Health America and just spoke to her about us possibly collaborating with them on the training. So we're still in the works with that. But I do think if we all can come together, we'll reach far more people and equip far more people with mental health first aid training.
And that's the beauty of collective impact. But what's funny is, and Megan, I don't know if Gia shared it with you, but Gia was like, "Oh yeah, we could train 5,000 people," and I was like, "We can?" Like, all right, like.
Endless ambition, Kemp. Let's do it.
I'm confident. I said, listen, Kemp, and I told Jen, I said, hey, we have the trainers, and me and Kemp have the connections to the community. We can definitely get some people trained. I'm confident we can at least get 1,000 people trained. I could shoot for 4,000. So I'm definitely confident in our ability to do this. So
yes, and big shout out to Peg's Foundation. Peg's Foundation is definitely going to hopefully be along for this ride with us, and just Rick Keller and his team up there. And, the beauty part about this, and both of you said this word stigma, right? And we know that there's always a stigma associated with mental health. What's interesting is the stigma associated with mental health is a lot different within faith organizations than it is within secular organizations. So if Megan, Gia, could you guys speak to a little bit of that and why, and tell us, and that's a big reason why I know we're jumping into this, but what are some of those stigma that is associated with it that's almost perpetuating the fear of it?
So a lot of people associate, mental health symptoms, especially in the faith-based community, with it's stigmatized or it's considered spiritualized. So I think that when we actually provide them with the training, it'll help them and arm them and let them know that, not only do they need, faith in their spirituality, but they also need some professional treatment as well. So it's great to have, your church and everything to rely on and to support you, but you also at some point in time need to seek professional treatment. And so helping them and training them with this mental health first aid will allow them to do that.
Yeah, I think that whole concept, right, of I can pray it away, right? There's been long history of that across a variety of religious infrastructures, right? So that's not even specific to Christianity. That crosses a whole variety of different religions and faiths. But this concept that if you're just more diligent to your God, if you just pray harder, right? If you're just more, if you step further into your faith, that becomes your source of healing when it comes to mental illness. And when we think about the fact that mental illness is no different than any other chronic illness, right? So it's no different than diabetes or cancer. It's no different than high blood pressure, right? Those are diseases that we have identified that create impacts in our body that make it not work the way that it would normally, right? So our system fires in different directions than it would normally. And we've stopped long ago expecting people to pray away their diabetes, and agreed, right? We probably need to get ourselves some insulin, or that we're going to pray away our cancer and said maybe we need to engage with an oncologist and figure out what we need to be doing in terms of a course of care. And so what we want to be able to do is shift people from thinking that their faith is a cure, and to get them talking and thinking about the fact that their faith is a support, and their faith will always be a support, right? It's an anchor and a key connection. It is a source of, feeling cared for, and feeling like there is a higher power that is engaged in service to you, but it is not going to physically rewire the connections in your brain that are impacted as the result of mental illness. And so that's where those additional professionals come in that Gia's talking about, right? So that's where we need to call in a little bit of backup to be able to provide that additional support and resource for folks.
And just to say, as someone who does personally have mental health things, which we all do at different levels. I was a pastor before, and I'm actually a pastor now. Again, it's interesting, but like,
congratulations! I saw that.
Thank you, crazy, right?
Congratulations.
But thank you.
Do you ever stop being a pastor though?
No. It's. I guess
It's
you're right. It's a white church thing, I guess, man.
This ain't this show. This ain't
wrong show. I'm sorry, guys. Wrong show. But no. Like, as somebody who struggles with that personally, I remember that being a very hard thing for me. Like hearing about breathing techniques when it came to anxiety. I'm like, whoa. I'm not. And it's like this total arm's length thing with things that could actually help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of the desire. So I see Jill Whitmarsh, I think I'm saying that right, on Facebook. This is exactly why we're doing this, Jill. She said, I would be interested in getting involved. I'm a mental health counseling student at Malone University. Thanks for addressing stigma among Christians. It's definitely still an issue. Thank you, Jill. And yes, I believe that too, because we, and I'm joking around about white church, black church. It's all one big church. But like, what we do is we say, I'm having anxiety. I need to go pray.
Mm-hmm.
And if the anxiety doesn't go away, I didn't pray enough.
Right.
Talk to me, Gia and Megan. Like, for those that might be thinking that way right now, one, do you want to like shake them in a loving way? Like, how do you tell people it's more than just that?
Well, let me jump in with that real quick. I think what you guys are talking about is what we need, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are practical steps and practicalities that we need to be doing right now. It's not to say that prayer doesn't work. It's not to say that those things, in whatever faith or background that you have, those things, continue to do those things. But then there are practical things that sometimes we need to go do, to get the help or assistance we need, right? It's no different for if I'm driving in my vehicle and I see that my gas light comes on. Well, I can pray that I get more gas, no doubt. Like,
no, it's a good thing.
I can pray for that, but at the same time, I'm coming up to a Circle K, Marathon, Golf, whatever gas station, so I could use some practicality and put some gas in my vehicle, so I can continue to get to my destination. And this is what we're trying to do with our partnership. We're trying to say, hey, how do we bring about practical steps to help meet some of the needs within our community, right? It is having more tools in the toolbox. I've heard 2 different times this week, Megan and Gia. One, I was on a call with Beth Cook over at the Adam board with the post-vention workshop. They allowed me to tag team with them on that. And they talked about suicide, especially with our young people, and how it's the second leading cause of death in people aged 10 to 35. And I was at a great banquet last night. Shout out to Young Life. Shout out to Amy Crawford. Great
Who's
time.
on here right now? Hey, Amy.
Great time. Great time last night. Megan, you would have been proud of me. I had my whiskers shoelaces in. When I had them in last night. Whiskers.
Representing. Love it.
They got to give me some type of endorsement deal. But that's
right. I feel like they're going to be your next sponsor. Just wait.
There's like a little ad that goes underneath while we're talking.
Pop up. You know what?
Hey,
no shame.
But at this, they were talking about the same thing. They were talking about suicide, and how there was a number of kids, even that they had worked with, that some had even began writing out their letters. Like they haven't done anything yet. So see, these are things that we have to lean into to really talk about what does that look like for us. You know, and so if we can help to reduce the stigma by educating people and help to raise an awareness that, man, it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. For us that are in the faith community, it's not a sin. You know, you didn't, but it's an opportunity for us to lean in better together to really be able to talk about some of these things. So I'm excited. And I know, Megan, when we sat there and we started whiteboarding thing, we had like 3 different sectors, right, that we want to really lean into to get trained. Could you share with the audience what some of those sectors were?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we think in 3s. And so I feel like there's some spirituality connected back into that as well, right? So when we really started to map this out, we started to talk in our 3s. And so the first of those sectors is the faith sector. And so, right, we've talked a little bit about that already this afternoon, and the importance in that sector of being able to not diminish the power of prayer, but to talk about how we can augment the power of prayer with additional support sought in the community when indicated, right, when we need that. And so that is a community that has struggled with some of the stigmatizing of mental health and mental wellness. And so we want to make sure that that's a target group that we're working with. And so that's not specific to a specific type of church or a specific sector of the faith community. It could be anywhere across, right? So that's one. The second is the education sector. And so to Kemp's point, right, as we talk about suicidality and we think about the impact of that suicide, that depression, isolation, particularly right in the time of COVID, is having on our young people, really stepping into that space with our educators and helping them to understand they are so often first responders for our kids. And so having them to know what to look for, when do kids need further assistance and referral and connection. Of course, that's a huge part of our work at Red Oak. So we do a lot of school-based mental health service. And so that fits nicely with our work and our mission as well. So that's population 2. And then the third is kind of what we're calling the public service sector, right? So we're really looking at those community entities that have substantial community engagement and involvement. And so they're going to be dealing with a lot of our populace. And so that could be anything from our libraries to our hospitals to our police departments and other first responders, to our public housing infrastructures, to our public transportation crews, that any place where we know there is public service happening and we're serving a broad swath of our population is what they do, where they're coming in interaction and engaging with lots of people. We want to make sure that we're speaking into that group of folks as well and providing them with the information. Because again, there's much more impact, right? So we think about collective impact. We want to be able to, we can train anybody. So there's value in mental health first aid for anybody, right? I could teach my grandma, I could teach my next door neighbor, I could teach, everybody can benefit from it. But as we think about beginning and where we're going to have the greatest impact, faith, education, and then public service have been kind of our focal sectors because of the reach that those spaces have and because of the risk associated with the populations that they serve.
Huge. Gia, to go over to you then. like one, I'm just hearing that you gave this just great connection point, and this is what literally Coach and I remember a year ago we were dreaming about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
man. Like we were like, and we started talking to people like we probably thought we were crazy. We're like everybody at the same time working on stuff. So give me kind of like your heart in this for Akron. You know, you told me we're not doing so well at the stigmatized thing. Like, give me the like 5 years from now, the 3 years from now. Like, what do we want to see?
I want to see what I want to see is I want to see more people being able to support people who may be having some kind of mental health crisis. I just have a personal connection with mental health and illness. I had a family member who committed suicide shortly after a gathering that we had. And I just think back, like if we all would have known or we could have recognized that she was experiencing a mental health crisis, we could have saved her life. So I'm hoping that with this training here, we can build capacity in the community to do that, to recognize when people are dealing with mental health issues. And I'm thinking 5 years from now, if we do that, we can somehow, decrease the amount of people who suffer along with mental health issues, as well as somehow decrease the amount of suicides that we have. So I'm hoping that by us providing this training, Kemp and I are going to connect so many people. We're going to get so many organizations involved, both in, like I said, the faith and as well as Megan said, in the faith community, as well as the education sector and the public sector. If we get all of these people involved and trained, our ability to reach and support people with mental health will just be it will be great. So I'm excited about this, and I'm hoping that we get a lot of organizations signed up with our partnerships. I think we'll be able to reach more people.
To ask the question that was asked on Facebook, if somebody's like, "Oh, this sounds great," like what do I do? Like not even the steps of mental health first aid, but just like I want to raise my hand.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? Where do we go from here, guys? Like, what's the call to action if they're sitting? Our friend over there at Malone is like, "Yeah, let's jump in." What does she need?
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you or if you know someone or if your organization is interested in receiving mental health first aid training, you are welcome to reach out to me. At Red Oak Behavioral Health, you can call me at 330-996-4600. You can also send an email to me with your request at gbell@redoakbh.org. And we, at some point, are getting some mental health first aid training scheduled. We're looking into January of 2021. So we're going to offer our classes to the public, as well as we're going to be able to also come to an organization and train your organization as well.
Oh my gosh, that concept of I love the training, going to an organization, because I've actually seen you do this before, coming in and speaking on it, and it's in a lot of ways, at least from my experience of getting to see it, it's not like this is, I don't want to say it's not hard, but it's not hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a lot of ways, it's giving permission for people just to notice and talk to people.
Yeah.
So talk me through, Megan, real quick, like how accessible this is. Like this isn't, you don't need a good degree for this. That's a big deal.
Right. Yeah, right. So it really is. It's very simple. And it's things that I can teach to my own kids, right? I have a 12 and a 7-year-old. They can do this work. So mental health first aid really operates by an action plan called ALGE, right? So their little mascot for mental health first aid is a little koala, because this program was originally developed in Australia before coming to the United States. And so it's a little koala, his name is Algie, and it's supposed to remind you kind of your steps. And so really the action plan is a 5-step plan, and each letter of Algie's name connects to a different step of the process. And so the A for Algie is assessing for risk of suicide or harm. So that's first making sure, is this person at imminent risk of harming themselves? So you start there, because that tells you how quickly you need to engage somebody from the outside, or whether or not you can step in and do more, right? So do we have a leg that needs to be amputated, or do we just need a Band-Aid? Where are we at here? And so you're first starting with your A, assess for risk of harm and suicidality. Your second step is to listen. So your L in ALGE is all about listening and doing so without judgment. So sitting from a space of just being able to hear and listening to understand, not to be understood. So not coming in trying to rescue, but just listening and hearing what's going on with that person and what do they need. Your G is giving reassurance. So your G is all about being able to say, hey, I'm giving you permission to feel it's okay, and reassuring you that you're not in this alone. I'm here with you, and I'm going to be able to help either be a listener or connect you to a resource that's going to be able to help get you to a space where you feel safe. E is encouragement. So there's two E's. So ALGE is spelled ALGEE. The first E is encouragement.
I was like, one E. Good.
Yep. So your first E is encouraging appropriate help seeking. So finding the right level of help, right? So again, do I need a Band-Aid? Do I need a splint? Do I need an amputation? Where's my injury? Where is my need? And then the last piece is really encouraging self-help. So if there's not professional help that I need, if my need is Band-Aid, what does that look like? And what are my self-help tools? And so we do learn some of those in mental health first aid. So things like deep breathing, which you referenced earlier, right? Those are things that are really kind of accessible tools that we talk about in mental health first aid, because we recognize there's a lot of triage that happens. And we want to make sure that there are pieces that you or I, as a lay people with no degrees and no experience in mental health, can absolutely step in and do. And then there are other places where we are not the right people to do that and where we need to link for additional support. So it's a very easy program to follow. Like I said, I feel like it gives great tips in terms of process. You do get a chance to kind of unpack some of the most prevalent mental health diagnoses. So you do learn, what's anxiety look like? What does depression look like? What's a thought disorder? Schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. What does a thought disorder look like? What's conduct disorder look like in a kid? What's trauma look like? So you really get a chance to start to unpack, again, not super deep, right? We're not getting into that space, but enough to be able to understand, again, what are those signs and symptoms? How am I going to know if what somebody's experiencing is anxiety, if it's depression, if it's trauma related? How am I going to know what those might look like so that I can get them connected to the right resource if I'm not able to just be a listener and help?
Just like first aid, you're not the one that's doing the surgery.
Yep.
But you can help call the people, if you will.
Yep.
Gia, is there anything that you, as far as like just letting people know the power of this program, anything that you would add to that?
I think it's, like I said, and like Megan has said, it allows you to support someone until they're able to get treatment. So just like CPR, this will allow our community to support people who are experiencing mental health issues. The training is currently offered virtually. So there's 2 hours of self-paced instruction, and there's 4 hours of instruction led by an actual facilitator. So we would be able to still offer this program in the midst of COVID. So I'm really excited about this. And like I said, there is access to this course in the midst of COVID.
And it is an evidence-based program. So, as Gia is kind of outlining it for you and what it looks like, it's important to know that there are rules as instructors. So when the process to become a mental health first aid instructor is pretty rigorous. Mm-hmm. So it's no joke. They put you through a week-long training, 8 hours a day for 5 days. You have to test at the end and be able to show that you can that you have learned the concepts appropriately, but also you have to perform in front of an audience to be able to show that you can deliver the information with fidelity. There are very specific expectations in terms of how that content is put in to the training that are part of the story and how it has to be delivered. So there is that it's important to understand that this is not, there's a lot of training right now. So we're in Zoom land, as I effectively call it, right? So we all live in Zoom land today. And perhaps maybe some of us have signed up for a Zoom training or two that we have maybe not intended to show up for, or maybe we thought we would show up for it, but then we were like, oh, they'll send me the slides later. You can't do mental health first aid that way. So similar to first aid and CPR in physical health world, you have to test at the end of mental health first aid and show that you've learned the concepts. And in order to become a certified instructor, so you get a card, just like you have your first aid card that you can carry in your wallet, you get a mental health first aid card. In order to officially become certified, you really do have to complete the program to fidelity. So you've got to do, as Gia's saying, both that first 2 hours of independent study, that asynchronous learning that you do at home and your jammies if you want, and then that 4 hours that you do while you're engaged with a trained facilitator. And I think about how much Gia knows about mental health first aid, or how much I know about mental health first aid at this stage, but neither of us are actually trainers in mental health first aid. So we know the program, we have been trained, so we are ourselves certified, but we're not certified trainers like Kemp is, right? So I couldn't stand up, even though I've gone through the program and I understand the content and I've worked in mental health for most of my life. I can't stand up and deliver this program and curriculum. Kemp can, because Kemp has that certification as a trainer to be able to deliver that information. And so you can only receive it from somebody who has that level of certification and access.
And that's just speaking to truly the strength of this program. So when we're saying that it's an accessible thing and it's helpful for people, that doesn't mean that it's half done.
No,
Like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And once again, guys, I'm just going to put this up on social as well. Is the number to reach Gia Bell? I feel like we need like a little like
I
sound.
know. Don't you feel like you should always have a song when you say Gia Bell? It has such a pretty ring to it.
Gia Bell, call Bell at redobkbh.org.
I used to, I was always teased in school, like you know how they had the song, "You Can Ring My Bell." With that song.
You can ring the bell. That sounded kind of weird, but 330-996-4600 or gbell@redoakbh.org. Please, .org. And please, as much as possible, guys, like we don't, to Gia's point earlier, like the rates of things in mental health, suicide, it's not getting better through the season of COVID. In fact, by all means, mental health is it's just as dangerous. I don't know if that's factual or not, but I would say it's a huge piece. So please, if you're watching this or you're watching this at a different point, please give a call, shoot an email, and even if it's just exploratory, like if the consciousness about this can just go up, the tide in Greater Akron, hundreds and hundreds of people can be affected by it. Yeah. Man, I'm excited about this, dude. This is, and we're gonna have you on again, ladies, just because like we got to keep this in front of us. Any kind of final thoughts, Coach, Gia, Megan?
Yeah, I would be interested to know, because you asked me the question, Ben. But really, I want to hear kind of the answer from them, is what type of feedback have you all got as an organization after our breakfast when we introduced this collaborative impact initiative in our partnership? What type of feedback have you all gotten?
Yeah, so we had a call before we left the breakfast, right? So it was hilarious because we were still standing there at in the auditorium and hearing that there was a call coming in saying, "Hey, evidently you just announced something and somebody wants a mental health first aid training and they're calling our front desk." So yeah, I mean, I think there was clearly quick response that came from the community, and there's absolutely a desire for training. You know, what's interesting, so much of our work is school-based, and so our schools don't know to call it mental health first aid necessarily, but our requests for training and for additional intervention at the school level this year have been way higher than they have ever been before. And so I think about, for example, what Barberton City Schools is doing on Friday, right? So they're having a mental health day. They're letting all of their kids stay home. No one's going to school on Friday. And all day long, our team here at Red Oak, in partnership with Child Guidance and Family Solutions, Greenleaf Family Center, CHC, who am I missing? Oh, Coleman will be doing trainings and for kids, for families, for staff on the impact of mental health. What do you need to be looking for, right? So we're trying to break down some of those pieces of mental health first aid and make that accessible to families and to that community. Because I mean, I was chatting with another CEO the other day who works in the industry as well. And she said, oh gosh, it's so bizarre to have gone from a space of 1 in 5, which is the number we talk about a lot in mental health, right? 1 in 5 people at any point in time is going to be experiencing symptoms related to their mental illness, to really a world in which we're 5 for 5. Because right now, given that we are living through a collective trauma, that's what COVID-19 is. It's a collective trauma. The pandemic that we're sitting in this space together with, which has been, by the way, going on now for more than 9 months, right? So we're with no real end at the end of the rainbow yet. And when you live through collective trauma, that at the very least, we know that there's adjustment disorder issues. And so part of what we're seeing right now, when you look at the diagnostic criterion in our fancy schmancy manuals that we use in mental health to render a diagnosis and determine if you meet criterion, pretty much everybody in the populace is going to qualify for an adjustment disorder right now, which is unheard of. That's a very atypical reality. And so when you're looking at that kind of a shift in impact, right, going from 20% of your populace needing mental health intervention at some level, again, could be the Band-Aid, could be the amputation. We don't know where that is for people in terms of how they're coping. But from a criterion perspective, we're all seeing significant impairment as a result of the upheaval in our world, this prolonged period of stress without an end in sight that's impacting our work life, it's impacting our social life, it's impacting our home life. And so I think that's a really interesting world to be launching this particular initiative in, right? Because we're in this space where it almost seems like everybody's hurting and everybody is struggling. The therapists are struggling, right? I'm talking with my own team. They're so busy taking care of everybody that they're like, hey, wait, who takes care of me? Because I'm struggling too when I'm living through this pandemic with you. So I think it's a really important time for us as a community to acknowledge we're going to have to lean into one another, and that all of us are doing some leaning right now, right? We're all asking for help and support and guidance and trying to feed one another and support one another through a collective trauma that is going to be ongoing for some period of time, right? We're not at the end yet. We're not at the beginning, but we're not at the end. So I think that's an important recognition to have. And I think it's feeding why so many schools and churches and community agencies are talking to us about this work, because they're feeling the impact of that trauma and not knowing what to do. So unlike before, where it was like, oh yeah, I know I need to talk about that mental health stuff with you, because if I've got a classroom of 20 kids, 5 of them probably need some additional support from you. No. Now we're talking about a world in which potentially all 20 of them and the teacher need support from you, right? And the same thing with our first responders, our nurses, our doctors, who've been showing up, our EMS, our fire, our police, right? Who are all trying to navigate through this crisis on the outside and figure out how to reimagine the way that they deliver care. So I do think it's got an enormous impact in our community, and the need is huge. And I think, the breakfast was the first of us kind of talking publicly about this in the stratosphere and putting it out there. But it's something that the community has been hungering for a long time, because they do feel a bit lost. They're not really sure what to do next. And they're all trying to find their ways to address it.
Huge, man. I'm just so glad to hear that connection's taking place. Ladies, thank you so much for being here and partnering with us. Like literally, it's I love what Coach was saying earlier. These aren't Love Akron initiatives. These are collective impact initiatives, because there ain't no way that you guys can do it on your own. We can't do it on our own. And that's why we're inviting people into this together. And then, and only then, I believe that we can truly love Akron. So, ladies, again, thank you. Just let everybody Oh yeah, Megan. Anytime I can get with some time with Megan is good with me and Gia. I like.
Likewise, friends.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
I love it. I love it. But one thing, just to let you guys know, coming up, we got a couple different events. One specifically that's very exciting is a citywide lament.
Yeah.
Coach, what is this? When is this? Why is this?
Yeah, we're looking at December 17th. It's going to be 6 p.m. We're going to have a citywide, just a collective lament with one another. I think just as brothers and sisters in faith, because we need to. I mean, 2020 has been what it is. It's impacted all of us. I love what Megan said about collective trauma. I think obviously COVID-19 is that, but also you couple in some of the natural disasters as far as some of the wildfires that are out in California, whether it's some of the, hurricanes that are happening down south, and also the racial tension. We just got through an election. At least I think we're through it.
I don't know.
But
I think it's coming through.
Yeah, all those things have put us in a place where we almost need to build an altar for our city. Locally, but also I think looking at what's going on nationally. But this is a way for us to come together within Greater Akron to pray and to lament together, to grieve together, because we have to learn how to, I believe, walk, work, and worship together, so that when 2020 comes in, we can usher in the new with joy, with gratitude and gratefulness, as we lean in just to trusting God just even more through these times, because it's been a year, and I know that a lot of times we kind of rush to get out of it, and I get that and I understand it, but I do believe all things work together. If we can just stay in this thing together and continue to encourage one another. And so that's something we got coming up December the 17th. It's going to be at 6 p.m. in the evening. It's going to be a special time for us. We're excited about it. We're going to do it through Zoom. And there's going to be some leaders in our faith community that's going to be there alongside with us to help lead us through that experience. And so we're just excited because this is a part of our One City initiative. Our One City initiative is we believe that whenever God spoke, he spoke to the church of the city. And so we want to make sure, again, just in the theme of our collectiveness, how can we continue to show that image of collectiveness as a city and as a group. So we're excited about it, man.
December 17th at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Yep.
6 p.m. and it'll be on Zoom. So by all means, very safe and thought through in that way. And ladies, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I muted you just a second ago. If you unmute it, we always end our time together saying this, and we just say Love Akron.
Well, we can't forget about next week.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
third Wednesday of the month. Connection versus collision, black-white conversation continues. We're going to continue to talk about the process of feeling with one another in order to lament together. We're going to be having some really deep conversations as usual. Bishop Johnson's going to be on. We're also going to have Jocelyn Grant on again, and also Dr. Hawk, who is the professor of Old Testament theology, coming and being on the panel. He is from Ashland University. So we're just excited to continue these things that we do and keep moving forward. And big shout out to 100 Black Men. Where do we go from here? We're not doing that this month because we're really trying to let the smoke clear so that we can say, hey, truly, as we come into 2021, where do we go from here now? Because there's a lot of changes that are happening. So we're excited about it. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, good. Man, you got my back on these details. I love it, dude. Well, I'd love to set this one up. So all you guys got to say is love Akron. So if you don't do anything else today, make sure that you
love Akron.
Love Akron, and we love you guys.
Love you so much. Thank you, guys.
And make sure to call Gia, and we will go from there. See you
go
guys.
Red Oak, go.
Woo!
That's right. Go Love Akron.
Thank you. Love Akron.